Most people think power is loud. They believe the person who speaks the most, argues the hardest, or dominates the room must be the strongest. But if that were true, the world would be run by the noisiest voices, and it isn't. Real power operates in silence. It hides behind calm expressions, slow movements, and controlled reactions. The most influential people rarely explain themselves, rarely react emotionally, and never rush to prove their worth. Instead, they watch, they wait, and while others talk, they gain control. Have you ever noticed how silence makes people uncomfortable? How a pause in conversation feels heavier than words? That discomfort is not accidental. It's psychological pressure. When someone remains calm and silent, the other person begins to question themselves. They fill the silence with explanations, excuses, or emotions. In that moment, power quietly shifts. This is not manipulation in the dramatic sense. It's human nature. We are wired to follow emotional stability and submit to certainty. When someone controls their reactions, they control the interaction. And when someone loses control of their emotions, they lose their position, even if they don't realize it. Tonight, you're going to learn the hidden rules of power that no one teaches openly. Not the loud kind of dominance, but the silent kind. The kind that makes people listen without demanding attention, respect without asking, and follow without being told. Once you understand this psychology, you'll never see conversations, arguments, or social situations the same way again. Power is rarely loud, and this simple truth alone separates those who influence from those who struggle. From an early age, people are conditioned to believe that authority must be visible and forceful. They are taught that confidence looks like speaking first, speaking often, and speaking loudly. Yet in real social environments, this behavior often produces the opposite effect. Loudness creates resistance. Force invites challenge. Aggression exposes insecurity. The individuals who truly command respect do not chase attention. Attention naturally moves toward them. Their strength lies not in what they say, but in what they choose not to say, and more importantly, in what they refuse to react to. Real power is psychological before it is physical or social. It begins with perception. How others see you, interpret you, and emotionally respond to your presence determines your influence far more than your words ever could. Every interaction, whether casual or serious, contains an unspoken negotiation of status. Who leads the emotional tone, who reacts, who adjusts, and who remains stable all determine the outcome. The person who stays composed while others fluctuate automatically rises in position. This happens instinctively, without logic or discussion, because human beings are wired to trust stability and follow calmness, especially in moments of uncertainty. Emotional control is the foundation of all authority. When someone reacts impulsively, they reveal their emotional triggers. Anger shows attachment. Defensiveness shows fear. Over-explaining shows insecurity. Seeking agreement shows dependence. Each uncontrolled reaction leaks information, and information weakens position. On the other hand, someone who feels emotion but chooses when and how to express it creates distance. That distance becomes mystery, and mystery is interpreted as power. People respect what they cannot easily read or predict. Silence plays a critical role in this psychological dynamic. Most people fear silence because it forces self-reflection. In the absence of noise, individuals become aware of their own thoughts, doubts, and insecurities. When one person remains silent in a conversation, The other often feels compelled to fill the space. They speak more, explain more, and sometimes reveal more than they intended. This is not because the silent person is aggressive, but because silence creates pressure. It shifts the burden of communication onto the other person, subtly placing them in a lower position. In every room, there exists an invisible hierarchy. It is not written, announced, or formally agreed upon, yet everyone feels it. This hierarchy forms quickly, often within seconds of interaction. People subconsciously rank one another based on emotional stability, comfort with silence, body language, reaction speed, and need for validation. Those who react quickly are seen as predictable. Those who pause are seen as calculating. Predictability reduces perceived power, while unpredictability increases it. This is why quiet observers often unsettle others. They cannot be measured, and what cannot be measured cannot be controlled. Many people misunderstand dominance and attempt to imitate it. They interrupt conversations, speak over others, exaggerate confidence, and assert opinions forcefully. While this behavior may appear strong on the surface, it often communicates insecurity underneath. True dominance is not about control over others. It is about freedom from the need to control. When someone does not need to dominate, they already possess authority. Their calmness suggests self-sufficiency, and self-sufficiency is deeply attractive to the human mind. Power also depends on who controls the emotional pace of an interaction. When one person becomes emotionally reactive, the other gains leverage. Arguments escalate not because of logic, but because of emotional loss of control. The individual who stays calm during conflict immediately gains the upper hand, regardless of who is right or wrong. Calmness signals confidence, and confidence reduces the perceived threat. This is why calm people are listened to, while emotional people are managed or dismissed. Another critical aspect of silent power is the absence of justification. People who feel the need to constantly explain themselves unconsciously signal doubt. They seek approval through clarification. In contrast, powerful individuals speak concisely and allow their words to stand without reinforcement. They trust their position enough to let silence follow their statements. This creates psychological weight. Others pause, reflect, and adjust because the message feels complete, not negotiable. The need for validation is one of the greatest weaknesses in social dynamics. When someone seeks approval, they hand control to others. Their mood, confidence, and self-worth become dependent on external response. Powerful individuals remove this dependency. They do not require agreement to feel secure. This emotional independence makes them difficult to manipulate and easy to respect. People sense when nothing can be taken from someone emotionally, and they respond with caution and deference. Most people never develop real power because it requires discipline, not talent. It demands restraint in moments where ego wants expression. It requires patience when anxiety demands action. It asks for stillness when emotion pushes for reaction. These skills are uncomfortable to develop, and most people avoid discomfort. They choose expression over control, reaction over reflection, and noise over silence. Each choice subtly lowers their position in the social hierarchy. Power is never seized through force. It is granted through perception. Others decide who holds influence based on behavior under pressure. The individual who remains composed when challenged, quiet when provoked, and steady when tested naturally rises. Over time, people begin to listen more closely, seek opinions, and adjust behavior without being asked. Authority is established without command. One rule governs all of this. The person who controls their reactions controls the interaction. This applies everywhere: conversations, arguments, workplaces, relationships, and leadership. Control does not mean suppression. It means choice, the ability to choose when to speak, when to pause, and when to remain silent separates the powerful from the powerless. This message is not about becoming cold or detached. It is about becoming intentional, about understanding that every emotional reaction is a signal, and every signal shapes perception. Once this awareness develops, unnecessary responses fade away. Observation increases. Words become deliberate. Silence becomes strength. And from that silence, real authority begins. Silence is one of the most potent, yet overlooked tools in human interaction. Most people underestimate it because they confuse it with inactivity or weakness. They rush to speak, over-explain, or fill the room with noise, believing that words are power. But words are only power when they are strategic. Silence, on the other hand, works constantly, subtly shaping thoughts, emotions, and behaviors without effort. It is pressure without aggression, influence without force, and authority without declaration. Those who understand this principle realize that true control is rarely demonstrated through sound. It is manifested in restraint. Humans are deeply uncomfortable with uncertainty, and silence amplifies it. When someone stops speaking at an expected moment, it triggers a mental response in those around them. The brain searches for patterns, attempts to predict the next move, and experiences a tension that demands resolution. This tension is not just intellectual, it is emotional. People feel it in their bodies, an itch in their mind, a shift in heartbeat, a subtle anxiety that makes them lean forward, reconsider their words, or even confess thoughts they were holding back. In this way, silence becomes a tool for uncovering hidden truths. It exposes the fears, doubts, and insecurities of others, often without them realizing that they are revealing anything at all. Eye contact paired with silence magnifies its effect exponentially. Maintaining calm, steady eye contact while saying nothing signals awareness and attention. The observer feels seen, analyzed, and judged, yet they are offered no immediate response or commentary. This creates a psychological imbalance. Humans instinctively respond to observation. When unaccompanied by immediate explanation, the mind searches for meaning, often projecting insecurities onto the silent observer. The combination of gaze and stillness communicates authority because it demonstrates comfort with presence and emotional stability, a subtle declaration that the silent individual is in control, while the speaker becomes reactive. Pauses are another layer of this subtle influence. When used intentionally, a pause before responding is not hesitation. It is a calculated moment that forces the other person to anticipate, to reflect, and sometimes to self-correct. In ordinary conversations, people fill pauses reflexively with words, excuses, or elaborations. The pause disrupts predictability, creates tension, and opens a space where the other person is compelled to engage on your terms. This is the essence of strategic silence. It shifts the weight of emotional labor onto the other individual, allowing them to reveal more than they planned and giving you insight and influence without ever raising your voice. Stillness complements silence in both body and mind. When an individual remains physically composed while silent, the effect is magnified. Fidgeting, shifting, or unnecessary gestures signal anxiety and weaken influence. Stillness communicates patience, confidence, and authority. It signals that the silent person is neither rushed nor threatened, creating an aura of control. Others feel compelled to react, adjust, or over-explain, often undermining their own position, while the silent observer gains subtle dominance. In essence, stillness is not simply absence of movement. It is a deliberate display of emotional stability and attentional control. People often underestimate the effect of silence because it challenges their assumptions. Most social interactions follow predictable scripts. A statement is made, a response is expected, a reaction follows. Silence disrupts this script. It forces individuals out of automatic behaviors and into conscious decision-making. Unconscious decision-making in moments of tension is exhausting. It exposes hesitation, inconsistency, and vulnerability. The longer silence is maintained, the more likely the other person is to reveal their weaknesses, their doubts, fears, and unguarded thoughts. This is how silence exerts influence without force or argument. Fear of uncertainty is a fundamental, psychological trigger that silence exploits. Humans crave clarity and predictability. In situations where these are absent, anxiety rises. When someone remains calm while others are unsettled, it shifts the balance of power. Those experiencing uncertainty are more likely to comply, self-correct, or seek guidance from the person who demonstrates control. Silence becomes a lens that magnifies insecurity in others, while reinforcing composure in oneself. It is not manipulation in the traditional sense. It is an application of natural human tendencies. Strategic silence also serves as a mirror, reflecting the thoughts and intentions of others. When one person stops supplying words, the other fills the void with information that would otherwise remain hidden. People begin to articulate motivations, fears, or desires without realizing that they are disclosing them. This is particularly effective in negotiations, leadership, and persuasion. By maintaining calm observation and controlled silence, one can extract truth, gauge intention, and influence outcomes subtly. The power of this method lies in its invisibility. It does not confront, accuse, or challenge. It allows others to self-reveal while positioning the silent observer as composed and authoritative. Silence requires mastery over oneself. One cannot wield it effectively while reacting impulsively or seeking validation. Every emotional response can weaken the effect of silence. Anger, defensiveness, or anxiety communicates instability and diminishes influence. The individual who maintains internal calm despite external pressures strengthens the psychological impact of their silence. In practice, this means mastering emotional regulation, practicing patience, and allowing moments of quiet to exist without the compulsion to fill them. Silence, when paired with self-control, becomes almost irresistible in its effect on others. Another subtle aspect of silence is timing. Responding too quickly signals reaction. Responding too late can appear disengagement. The key is intentional timing, a deliberate pause that communicates thoughtfulness, awareness, and control. This pause creates anticipation and often leads the other person to fill in the gaps with their own words or corrections. Over time, this creates a pattern in which others learn to wait, listen, and respond to the silent individual's terms, giving them a consistent edge in social dynamics. Silence is especially powerful in exposing lies or inconsistencies. Those who speak impulsively or defensively are more likely to reveal contradictions under the weight of unbroken quiet. The mind naturally seeks resolution and explanation. When confronted with a composed silence, it compensates by over-explaining or rationalizing. Without aggressive questioning, truth emerges because the silence forces the liar to engage with the psychological pressure. This method allows the observant individual to discern intentions, honesty, and character without overt confrontation. Many people attempt to use silence tactically without understanding its nuance. Silence used as punishment, manipulation, or withdrawal carries negative energy and eventually damages relationships. The power of silence comes not from using it as a weapon, but from using it as a tool of presence and awareness. It is a way to assert control over oneself and over the situation, without needing to dominate, threaten, or belittle. The silent individual becomes a center of gravity, shaping interactions not through aggression, but through the quiet pressure of composed observation in leadership. Silence often communicates more than speeches or orders. A leader who listens, pauses, and observes commands attention without raising their voice. Their presence communicates confidence, patience, and understanding. Followers respond not because of fear or obligation, but because the silent leader models composure and emotional stability. Similarly, in negotiations, the silent participant who allows others to speak first often uncovers critical information, gains insight into motives, and shapes outcomes while revealing little about themselves. Silence also fosters strategic influence in groups. In social dynamics, individuals who are constantly vocal may dominate conversation superficially, but they rarely control perception. The one who chooses when to speak, when to pause, and when to observe controls perception itself. Others begin to anticipate their words, reflect on their intentions, and assign weight to their contributions. In this way, silence creates authority without confrontation, influence without coercion, and control without aggression. Finally, silence is a skill that develops with intentional practice. Initially, it can feel uncomfortable or unnatural. The urge to fill spaces is strong, but with awareness, individuals learn to embrace quiet as a tool, understanding that the less they react unnecessarily, the more they gain influence. Silence becomes not absence of participation, but a statement of presence. It signals mastery over the self, over emotion, and over perception. When combined with calm observation, controlled pauses, and steady attention, silence exerts a power that words alone cannot match. In conclusion, silence is far more than the absence of words. It is an active instrument of influence. Through stillness, timing, observation, and emotional control, silence pressures others, exposes their weaknesses, and shapes interactions subtly yet profoundly. Those who understand and practice it gain a psychological edge that is invisible, yet impossible to ignore. In the next segment, this principle will be applied to uncover how emotional triggers are exploited to guide decisions, showing that influence is often quiet, invisible, and always effective. Human behavior is far more predictable than most people realize, and yet, very few understand the subtle forces that shape the decisions we make every day. One of the most powerful, yet overlooked, influences is emotion. Every choice we believe to be logical is often guided by underlying emotional triggers. Guilt, fear, desire, and obligation are all tools that can subtly direct behavior without the individual even being aware. Those who understand these forces wield a type of influence that feels natural, inevitable, and inescapable. The person who masters emotional triggers does not need to coerce or demand. They guide, influence, and shape outcomes by understanding how the human mind reacts to internal cues. Emotional manipulation does not require loud confrontation or visible aggression. In fact, overt attempts at persuasion are often resisted. Real influence is subtle. It taps into automatic responses, the reflexes of the mind that bypass rational thought. Humans are wired to seek approval, avoid discomfort, and maintain social cohesion. These instincts can be leveraged quietly, shaping decisions before logical reasoning even has a chance to intervene. The more subtle the influence, the stronger its effect, because the person being influenced often does not recognize that their choices are being guided. Guilt is one of the most common emotional triggers used to manipulate decisions. People are inherently responsive to perceived responsibility. When someone hints that you owe them or subtly highlights what you should do, the mind instinctively searches for ways to correct or compensate. This trigger is powerful because it taps into deeply ingrained social conditioning. From childhood, humans are taught to respond to guilt with compliance, apology, or action. The careful observer can apply this principle, not aggressively, but gently, allowing others to make decisions in alignment with the implied expectations, all while maintaining the illusion of voluntary choice. Fear is another dominant force that guides human behavior. While obvious threats provoke clear reactions, subtle fear is even more effective. Uncertainty, potential loss, and perceived danger create tension that prompts individuals to seek resolution quickly. This creates an opening for influence. By controlling the emotional tone, presenting options strategically, and remaining calm while others react, one can guide decisions without confrontation. Fear, combined with clarity from the influencer, creates a psychological pattern. The observer becomes reliant on guidance, not because it is demanded, but because it is perceived as the safest path. Desire and reward operate as another crucial trigger. Human decision-making is highly responsive to potential gain. The promise of benefit, recognition, or satisfaction encourages alignment with suggested actions. The key lies in timing and subtlety. Too obvious a reward feels transactional and often triggers skepticism. When rewards are implied or associated with internal values, however, they guide behavior effortlessly. The mind associates the choice with positive emotion, creating compliance without overt pressure. Social validation is perhaps the most universally effective trigger. People are instinctively sensitive to how they are perceived by others. Approval, admiration, and recognition act as invisible nudges, pushing individuals toward decisions that enhance their social standing. Conversely, the threat of disapproval or exclusion can strongly influence compliance. Those who understand this dynamic position themselves as the silent authority in social environments. Their reactions, approvals, and gestures carry weight, steering decisions through subtle cues rather than explicit instruction. Emotional triggers also interact with cognitive biases, making influence even more powerful. Humans tend to favor what is familiar, avoid ambiguity, and seek consistency between beliefs and actions. By presenting options, framing situations, or highlighting certain details, one can leverage these biases to guide choices. This method of influence feels natural to the person being guided because it aligns with their mental patterns. Subtle framing, combined with awareness of emotional triggers, creates a potent combination for shaping behavior. One of the reasons emotional triggers are so effective is that they operate below conscious awareness. People rarely recognize how feelings such as guilt, fear, or desire influence their decisions. They rationalize choices afterward, giving the illusion of complete control. This allows influence to be exerted gently, leaving the individual believing their choice was autonomous. Those who master this skill can navigate social, professional, and personal situations with strategic subtlety, guiding outcomes without ever appearing forceful or manipulative. Powerful individuals understand that timing and emotional pacing amplify the effectiveness of these triggers. They observe reactions carefully, allowing tension or desire to build naturally before interjecting or guiding. Immediate responses often feel reactive. Delayed, calculated engagement communicates composure and control. By adjusting the emotional rhythm of interaction, influence becomes almost invisible, yet profoundly effective. Others respond naturally, revealing intentions, priorities, and vulnerabilities that can guide subsequent actions. Emotional triggers also rely on subtle observation. Awareness of micro-expressions, tone shifts, body language, and hesitation provides insight into internal states. A flicker of discomfort, a pause, or a small change in posture can reveal underlying conflict, desire, or doubt. Those who are attuned to these signals can adjust their approach in real time, reinforcing influence while appearing neutral or passive. This creates an almost magnetic effect. Others align with the person who reads, predicts, and adapts effortlessly, perceiving guidance as natural or inevitable. Manipulation through emotional triggers is not inherently unethical. It becomes so only when used to harm. In professional, social, or strategic contexts, understanding and leveraging emotions can facilitate collaboration, negotiation, and problem solving. The most effective application balances subtle guidance with awareness of the other person's autonomy. Influence succeeds when individuals feel that they are choosing freely, even as their choices align with the objectives of the guiding presence. Guilt, fear, and desire often interact in layered ways, magnifying their effect. For instance, someone may feel anxious about potential loss, responsible for outcomes, and drawn toward a reward simultaneously. Each trigger reinforces the others, creating a potent drive toward the decision that the observer subtly encourages. Timing, observation, and strategic silence further amplify this effect. The person being guided is unaware of the combined impact. All they experience is a compelling internal motivation to act. Subtle emotional guidance also leverages contrast. Humans instinctively compare options, experiences, and behaviors, presenting scenarios that highlight potential loss, reward, or social advantage in comparison to inaction or alternative choices, magnifies decision-making pressure. Contrast combined with controlled silence and measured guidance steers choices without overt assertion. Those who practice this method cultivate influence that is both ethical and extraordinarily effective because it taps into natural human tendencies rather than coercion. Another essential aspect is the individual applying these principles must maintain composure, patience, and calm. Emotional triggers are only effective if the influencer is not themselves reactive or attached. If they show frustration, impatience, or obvious desire for control, the subtlety is lost, and the mind of the other person detects it. Mastery comes from combining observation, silence, emotional intelligence, and timing, creating influence that feels like natural alignment rather than external direction. Emotional triggers also reveal vulnerabilities when misused. Individuals who attempt to force compliance through pressure or overt guilt often provoke resistance. The human mind recognizes aggression and instinctively defends against it. True influence is therefore indirect, leveraging existing tendencies rather than creating conflict. The art lies in reading the emotional landscape, knowing when to act, when to pause, and how to present options that align with internal motivations. Finally, the power of emotional triggers lies in their subtlety and invisibility. Influence is strongest when it feels invisible, when the other person perceives their decisions as self-generated. By understanding guilt, fear, desire, social validation, and cognitive patterns, one can shape behavior without confrontation, debate, or overt persuasion. Combined with silence, observation, and measured engagement, these triggers create a framework of influence that is both profound and sustainable. It allows the strategic individual to guide outcomes while preserving relationships, autonomy, and trust. In essence, emotional triggers are the quiet undercurrents that shape human decisions. Mastery of this subtle psychology transforms ordinary interactions into arenas of influence. The individual who understands, observes, and applies these principles moves through social, professional, and personal environments with an almost invisible authority. Decisions bend naturally to their presence, and outcomes align without force. This is the silent psychological art of influence, where understanding the mind and emotions becomes more powerful than words, arguments, or visible authority. Every social interaction carries an invisible battlefield of influence and perception. Few people realize that daily conversations, group dynamics, and even casual interactions are arenas of subtle power play. Humans instinctively assess status, credibility, and reliability, often without conscious awareness. These assessments guide behaviors, decisions, and social alignment. The person who understands these dynamics navigates social environments strategically, while those unaware are guided passively, often reacting to the pressures and expectations of others rather than shaping outcomes themselves. Social power is not about dominance or intimidation. It is about understanding the rules of engagement that govern human behavior and leveraging them silently. Humans constantly measure one another through cues such as tone of voice, body language, eye contact, and responsiveness. Every gesture, pause, or expression communicates information about confidence, competence, and social position. People respond unconsciously to these signals, adjusting their own behavior to align with perceived authority or status. The individual who can control these signals gains influence effortlessly. A steady posture, calm tone, and deliberate movements project stability, while inconsistent gestures, hurried speech, and visible anxiety undermine credibility. Social power emerges from this silent negotiation of perception. Observation is the cornerstone of social influence. Those who master these unspoken dynamics spend more time watching than speaking. By observing patterns in speech, behavior, and emotional reaction, one can map social hierarchies, predict responses, and identify vulnerabilities. Subtle cues reveal who seeks validation, who fears conflict, and who desires approval. These insights allow the strategic individual to guide interactions without overt control, letting others act in ways that inadvertently align with their objectives. The more attuned the observer, the more effective their influence. Silence remains a critical tool within these social games. It shifts the balance of power by forcing others to fill conversational space. When one person chooses not to react immediately, it creates pressure that can reveal intentions, inconsistencies, or hidden motivations. The silent individual gains information while others expend emotional energy. This is particularly effective in group settings, where multiple individuals are vying for attention or influence. Those who speak less, pause strategically, and observe carefully often emerge as the central figure around whom decisions and social alignment revolve. The principle of contrast is a subtle yet powerful tactic. Humans instinctively compare behaviors, choices, and emotional displays. In social groups, contrasting confidence with insecurity, calmness with anxiety, or restraint with impulsiveness naturally shifts attention and influence toward the composed individual. By deliberately modulating one's own behavior in contrast to others, an individual can guide perceptions without direct assertion. The mind subconsciously attributes stability, competence, and leadership to those who consistently display composure amid chaos or emotional fluctuation. Reciprocity is another social principle often exploited in power dynamics. Humans are wired to respond to perceived favors, gestures of support, and displays of consideration by offering small, deliberate gestures of goodwill. The strategic individual creates subtle obligations that others feel compelled to honor. This principle functions more effectively when it is understated. Excessive generosity or visible calculation undermines authenticity. Social power is built upon the careful balance of contribution and restraint, guiding the behavior of others without overt demands. Status signaling is constantly at work in daily interactions. People assess one another through indicators such as competence, confidence, access to resources, and alignment with social norms. These signals do not need to be explicit. They can be conveyed through subtle behaviors, speech patterns, and social positioning. Individuals who understand these signals can strategically elevate their perceived status while diminishing or redirecting the influence of others. The silent calibration of these signals allows for influence without confrontation, letting perception operate as a form of authority. Control over attention is an often overlooked aspect of social power. Humans naturally follow stimuli that are unpredictable, confident, or emotionally resonant. Those who can manage where others direct their attention gain leverage over interpretation and reaction. This is why strategic individuals often speak less, observe more, and interject only when it creates maximum impact. By allowing others to occupy the majority of the verbal space, they let information flow toward them, and they choose carefully when to respond. This selective engagement amplifies perceived authority. Conflict management is also a critical component. Social power is rarely about dominating every argument. It is about controlling outcomes without direct confrontation. When tension arises, individuals who maintain calm, assess motivations, and respond selectively shift dynamics in their favor. Aggressive confrontation signals insecurity or the need for approval, whereas measured engagement communicates competence and control. Those unaware of these dynamics often overreact, reinforcing the strategic individual's influence without realizing it. Emotional intelligence underpins all effective social strategy. Understanding the emotional landscape, who is anxious, who seeks approval, who desires validation, allows for calibrated responses. These responses need not be verbal. Subtle facial expressions, measured nods, or strategic silence convey understanding and awareness. Emotional intelligence transforms observation into actionable insight. giving the perceptive individual the ability to guide interactions subtly. Those who fail to notice emotional cues react passively, allowing others to shape the environment around them. Timing and pacing amplify influence. Humans respond not only to what is said, but when it is said. Immediate reactions often appear impulsive. Delayed, deliberate responses convey thoughtfulness and control. Strategic timing allows the observant individual to influence outcomes by shaping the rhythm of interaction. Pauses, deliberate gestures, and carefully chosen moments of engagement create psychological tension that others are compelled to respond to. Over time, this rhythm trains social groups to anticipate guidance, reinforcing authority without explicit assertion. Trust and credibility are silently earned through consistency. Individuals who consistently exhibit calm, thoughtful, and measured behavior build reputations that precede them. Others rely on these individuals for insight, guidance, and interpretation of social cues. Credibility is strengthened not through loud claims, but through repeated demonstration of competence and stability. This consistency compounds influence over time, allowing the strategic individual to shape decisions, align behaviors, and guide outcomes almost invisibly. Influence is also strengthened through controlled vulnerability. Sharing selective personal insights, admitting minor mistakes, or acknowledging limitations strategically humanizes the individual while reinforcing authority. When done sparingly, this creates trust without diminishing perceived competence. Others are more likely to follow or align with individuals who demonstrate both strength and measured openness. The art lies in revealing enough to build connection, but never so much as to weaken position. Subtle manipulation in social settings often relies on layering these principles: observation, silence, emotional intelligence, timing, and calibrated revelation combine to create a web of influence that guides behavior seamlessly. Individuals who recognize and utilize these layers operate at a level above reactive participants. They influence perception, control attention, and guide decision-making without overtly asserting dominance. Social games are being played constantly, and those who understand the rules win without confrontation or resistance. The strategic individual also recognizes the role of reciprocity in group dynamics. People unconsciously seek to repay favors, acknowledgement, or inclusion. By creating small, deliberate imbalances of attention or support, influence is generated naturally. These actions do not appear transactional. Instead, they feel social, reasonable, and voluntary. Over time, the cumulative effect of these interactions positions the observant individual as central to the network, a subtle authority whose guidance shapes decisions across the group. Finally, awareness of one's own emotional state is critical. Social power is ineffective if the influencer is reactive, anxious, or emotionally compromised. Mastery of calm, composed presence ensures that influence is exerted intentionally rather than haphazardly. The combination of internal stability and external observation creates an aura of authority that is perceived even without verbal assertion. Social influence is maximized when presence, timing, observation, and emotional insight align seamlessly. Respect is not demanded. It is silently earned through consistent behavior, deliberate presence, and mastery over one's own mind and emotions. People who naturally command respect do not rely on loud declarations, aggressive posturing, or visible authority. Instead, they cultivate habits and practices that shape perception, build trust, and reinforce credibility over time. These habits are often invisible in daily observation, yet their cumulative effect creates an aura of influence that others instinctively recognize. Understanding and adopting these practices allows anyone to elevate their presence, influence interactions, and secure respect without confrontation or assertion. The first habit of highly respected individuals is self-discipline. Discipline manifests in speech, action, and thought. Words are chosen deliberately, gestures are measured, and reactions are controlled. Impulsive behavior, excessive emotion, or reactive speech signals instability and reduces perceived authority. Those who practice self-discipline develop the ability to respond to situations thoughtfully rather than reacting impulsively. This control communicates competence and reliability, creating trust and earning respect without the need for verbal reinforcement. Discipline is the foundation of influence because it signals mastery over oneself, the prerequisite for guiding others. Another critical habit is active observation. Individuals who gain respect naturally spend more time watching than speaking. They notice patterns in behavior, emotional cues, and social dynamics. These observations allow them to anticipate actions, understand motivations, and respond effectively. Observation is not passive. It is an active engagement with the environment, combining awareness, patience, and emotional intelligence. The more perceptive an individual, the more accurately they can navigate complex interactions, subtly guiding outcomes while remaining composed and understated. Emotional control is equally essential. Those who command respect manage their emotions in every situation. They remain calm in chaos, composed under pressure, and neutral in moments of provocation. Emotional stability communicates strength, reliability, and maturity. People naturally gravitate toward individuals who exhibit these traits because stability reduces uncertainty and discomfort. Emotional control also amplifies the effect of silence, deliberate pauses, and strategic observation, enhancing the individual's influence over social, professional, and personal dynamics. Consistency is a third defining habit. Consistency in behavior, principles, and values creates predictability in the mind of observers. Those who consistently act with integrity, calmness, and purpose build credibility over time. In contrast, inconsistency breeds doubt, distrust, and diminished influence. The habit of consistent action reinforces perception of authority because others learn to rely on the individual's judgments, decisions, and reactions as steady and dependable. Respect grows silently, reinforced by repeated demonstration rather than loud assertion. Strategic communication is another hallmark. Individuals who earn respect know that words carry weight and that timing, tone, and clarity matter more than quantity. They speak with purpose, avoiding filler, unnecessary explanations, or emotional reactions that dilute their message. Strategic communication is paired with active listening, which amplifies influence. By listening carefully, responding deliberately, and choosing moments of engagement wisely, they shape conversations and interactions without appearing controlling. This balance of speaking and listening establishes authority and fosters trust simultaneously. Boundary setting is also central to respected behavior. People who are universally respected know when to say no, when to engage, and when to withdraw. Boundaries communicate self-respect, which others instinctively mirror with their own respect. Setting limits does not require justification or argument. It is enforced through presence, calm, assertion, and consistency. Respectful boundaries create clarity in relationships, preventing exploitation while establishing the individual as a stable anchor in social dynamics. The habit of calculated generosity further enhances respect. Generosity is not excessive or performative. It is deliberate and balanced. Offering assistance, recognition, or support without creating dependency or expectation builds goodwill. When paired with emotional intelligence and observation, strategic generosity strengthens social influence, fosters loyalty, and encourages voluntary alignment with the individual's guidance. Others feel valued and understood, which deepens respect without overt manipulation. Presence and posture also play a crucial role. The way an individual carries themselves communicates authority without words. A steady gaze, upright posture, measured gestures, and calm movements project confidence and competence. Observers subconsciously interpret physical presence as indicative of mental and emotional stability. This silent signaling reinforces influence and magnifies the effect of habits such as discipline, observation, and emotional control. Physical presence becomes a non-verbal tool for commanding respect. Patience is another defining practice. Respected individuals understand that influence is earned over time, not demanded immediately. They avoid rushing interactions, forcing outcomes, or reacting impulsively to perceived slights. Instead, they allow situations to unfold, observing carefully and intervening strategically. This patience demonstrates confidence in their own abilities and timing, signaling that they do not depend on immediate validation or control. Others intuitively recognize this steadiness as authority, enhancing respect without any verbal claim. Self-awareness underpins all other habits. Individuals who command respect understand their own strengths, weaknesses, triggers, and goals. They continually assess their internal state, refining behaviors and reactions to align with desired outcomes. This self-mastery creates an aura of reliability and competence that others unconsciously respect. By modeling self-control and intentional behavior, they set a standard that naturally elevates their status in social and professional hierarchies. Discretion is another critical factor. Those who earn respect understand the power of information control. They speak selectively, avoid gossip, and maintain confidentiality. This habit fosters trust and signals reliability, as others learn that sensitive information is safe in their presence. Discretion also magnifies the psychological impact of their words. When they choose to speak, their statements carry weight because they are perceived as deliberate, informed, and meaningful. Mentorship and guidance further establish respect. Individuals who offer insight, teach, or provide strategic guidance without seeking immediate recognition build loyalty and influence. The act of helping others succeed demonstrates competence, empathy, and authority. When coupled with patience, discretion, and strategic communication, mentorship becomes a powerful vehicle for earning voluntary respect and alignment from peers, subordinates, and even superiors. Decision-making clarity is essential. Those who gain respect make decisions confidently, based on observation, analysis, and judgment rather than impulse or external pressure. Clear, timely, and consistent decision-making signals competence and reduces uncertainty for others, reinforcing trust and authority. People instinctively follow those who demonstrate the ability to navigate complexity calmly, without hesitation or overreaction. This clarity in action complements other habits such as emotional control, discipline, and strategic communication, forming a cohesive framework for influence. Finally, reflection, and continuous improvement distinguish those who consistently earn respect. Self-assessment, learning from mistakes, and refining habits ensures that behavior remains aligned with desired outcomes. Individuals who model growth, self-awareness, and adaptability are perceived as resilient, competent, and forward-thinking. This combination of humility and mastery reinforces long-term respect because others recognize both capability and character in essence. The habits and practices of respected individuals form an interlocking system: discipline, observation, emotional control, consistency, strategic communication, boundary setting, calculated generosity, presence, patience, self-awareness, discretion, mentorship, decision-making clarity, and reflection. Each habit strengthens the others, creating a cohesive pattern of behavior that naturally attracts attention, influence, and voluntary respect. People who adopt these practices do not need to assert authority aggressively. Their presence, consistency, and mastery speak volumes, earning influence and deference organically. Respect, once earned through these deliberate habits, is durable. It does not fluctuate based on momentary emotional states or superficial achievements. Instead, it is anchored in perception, behavior, and trust. Those who understand this principle realize that influence is not a product of force or intimidation, but a reflection of consistent mastery over self, environment, and human dynamics. The individuals who apply these practices move through social, professional, and personal spaces with silent authority, commanding attention, loyalty, and alignment without ever raising their voice. Their influence is subtle, profound, and lasting.